Awesome. So we're on Twitter right now. We're live.
Close my door.
President Trump is reading the live tweets as we go. So maybe we could just do a quick around the room. We all have name tags, but maybe you could just remind us what your name is. Let us know where you work or what division you work for, and something that you bought recently that felt like a big purchase. Sound good? So why don't we start over here?
So I'm Morgan, for those of you, and most of you don't know me. I am a product manager at Sportsnet. I do the fantasy games, some of the vendor pages, stuff like that on the digital side of things. I recently bought a digital piano that I was super excited for. It's got weighted keys, but it was a little painful to
So yeah, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you all too.
My name tag says David, which is my name, but I usually go by Dave. I work in CVU and commercial strategy, generally setting pricing and packaging for our TV and internet products. And I feel like an old man, but I bought new outdoor patio furniture. Did the deck last summer, didn't have enough money for furniture, so this year I got furniture.
Nice.
Nice. Hi guys, I'm John. I'm not actually with Rogers. I'm a high school tutor. And a big purchase I just made was a dog.
Cool.
Her name is Scout. Yeah.
Cool.
He's my husband, by the way. I'm Catherine. I work in content distribution for the Rogers Media side. And biggest purchase I made was a 4K TV.
Oh. Do you notice the difference?
No, I don't have to do that.
My name is Tim. I work for Rogers in the finance division. One of the, I guess I would consider a major purchase that I bought was some bedroom furniture. I bought that within the month, and yeah, it's out big.
You're an adult. You bought it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
My name is Jamie. I work in the as a front-end web developer for Rogers Consumer and Fido.ca. And the biggest purchase I made recently was a nice couch, not one off Kijiji. So yeah, feel like an adult too.
My name's Alex, and I work at Rogers as well, in the enterprise business unit in marketing. My most recent big purchase was a bike.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mountain bike, road bike, motorcycle.
Nice cruiser. I rode it to work today, so it's just out
Good
there
day for it.
actually.
You got a helmet?
My name's Mike. I don't work at Rogers either. I work corporate real estate downtown, Davis and Young, and I'm with her. Yeah. Big purchase. I just bought a few suits at Harry Rosen, I guess.
Nice. They have good service there.
Good service, overpriced, but it's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm Robin. I work in the product innovation team in Rogers Media, and the most recent or big purchase happened yesterday. We had to shell out some money to surface our front deck because of leaks.
Nice. My big purchases recently are not big, but we've got this raccoon problem at our house, so I feel like my wife just keeps telling me, like, I feel like Elmer Fudd or something, and my wife's like, oh, you're going to Home Depot again? Yes. And the ultrasonic device and the netting and whatever, so yeah. Great. Well, good to meet you all. So I'm going to ask some questions, you know what I mean? We've got some, you're going to see me taking some notes, Robin, as well. And again, feel free to tell us what you're thinking about, what you're comfortable with. Sound good? So we'll start this way this time. So sure. Mike, I said we're going to talk about finance and financial products. When I say the word finance or money, what springs to mind?
Well, I don't know, a lot of things. How I can make more money, my investments, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel when you think about investments?
It's how does it make me feel? Comfortable with my situation, I guess. Yeah. I always want to invest more, always kind of figuring out what you can invest and what you got to maintain. I work in a commission-based industry, so always keeping that kind of buffer in the bank versus what you can invest, which might not be as liquid, is always a concern or a thought.
Good. And you're that's something comfortable. Yeah. Great. Anybody else, when I say the word money, finance, investment springs to mind? Tim, different point of view?
Yeah, I think you can take that in many different ways. Personal finance is something that springs to mind. How I can manage my own money and manage my my family's money is something I would consider. But from a work perspective, since I'm coming from finance, I'm also thinking about the company that I work for and their finances as well. So
Sure.
that would be the first things that spring to mind when you mention that word.
And when you say how can I manage my own money and my family's money,
It would, investments is part of it. Budgeting, I guess the finances that are finances between myself and my fiance are important as well. And just overall managing money
Yep.
would be something.
So, anything frustrating about like that? You know.
There's always not enough money, right? Yeah, it's always frustrating. You have to balance your priorities, your significant other's priorities or your family's priorities, and trying to find that that right balance where everybody would be satisfied or happy. So it's always frustrating, I would say.
Any positives to it?
I mean,
Other
when
than having more money. Yeah.
positives is I guess you understand your situation a little more. You understand not just your own situation, but the other people involved's situation as well.
Yeah.
That's really important to be able to put yourself in, to understand the situation is crucial when managing money. So yeah, there's positives definitely.
Okay.
So understand, you mean knowledge?
Knowledge, absolutely. Knowledge
Okay.
is important.
I can add to that
Yeah.
a little bit. I mean, positive is like for me, I don't invest in anything other than like a nice jacket.
It's nice, by the way.
Thank you. I mean, for me, money, like the positive is like, oh, I'm gonna save for this, and I'm gonna go on a great trip, or we just got engaged as well, and so we're planning our wedding and our honeymoon, and so like that to me is exciting. And I'm more about how am I going to spend my money than where am I.
We're working on this.
That's he can do it. Big less, but yeah.
So I guess that speaks to budgeting too, right? Budgeting becomes hugely important. You have to make sure coming out versus going in,
Yeah.
right? And just to knowledge too, right? It's important to know what the significant other, wife, whatever it is, what she's got coming in and going out if you're going to approach it as a team or as a duo, family,
Is that-
whatever it is.
Is that something that you do actively?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because specifically with me and her, we have very different financial habits.
Sure.
So it's very important to understand.
Similar.
Very important to understand where the other person's coming from to actually make it work,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as opposed to just clash or whatnot.
Is it something that you find is it stressful? You guys can have different. For the couples in the room, you're allowed to have different answers.
I think the biggest thing is communication. Like they say that 50% of marriages fail because of finances. So like it's something that you need to go into with an open eye and be able to be like understand where the other person's coming from and kind of work together in order to manage what your different habits might be.
Yeah, you can't just force the other person to get on your page.
Yeah.
You gotta kind of find a compromise there.
Absolutely. Dave, how about you? Anything on the personal finance side that springs to mind as frustrating or positive experience?
I think this group was strategically chosen. I'm also getting married this year. Tons of chats, almost daily, I would say, with respect to money. It can be frustrating for sure at times to figure out how to spend either for the wedding or saving up for whatever comes next. But also communication is key, so it can be frustrating, but it also brings you together as a couple too if you try and approach it that way. So.
Yeah. Well, I'd love if someone could walk me through if you're thinking about planning for something big, a trip or a wedding or both, right? Or honeymoon. How do you approach that conversation? How do you make that kind of call on what goes to the wedding and what doesn't go to the wedding?
We just got married last year.
Okay.
I still don't have an answer for that.
We kind of
I know everything goes to the wedding. I've been there.
like we don't own a house, so we didn't want to blow the bank on a big wedding. so we kind of said, we set a budget and we tried our hardest to stick to that. So closer to the end, we went a bit overboard. Near the end, you're just so ready for it to be over that you're like, I don't care, I will pay it. But we didn't go crazy. We maybe went like 10% over our budget, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, it's a big expense that is hard to justify for some people. So.
Did you have a tool that you used for budgeting, like a resource or
Excel.
Yeah, just personal.
Yeah.
pen and paper and a calculator?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Similar experiences for other folks?
We're like early. I don't want to spend all my money on the one day. That's why I want like the rest. So we're thinking of doing a destination wedding, so it's smaller.
Yeah.
Put the burden on our guests. So it's figuring out what our parents are willing to support, and then going from
By means of a tool, it's just spreadsheets though.
Yeah, and talking to all of our, because we're kind of at that age, everyone's getting married. How much did this
Using
cost?
other people as a
Yeah.
source of
And,
change,
so I was saying, okay, this probably makes sense, and we'll work from there, like setting a budget. And
There's a great wedding Facebook group. I did that and I bought a bunch of decor after other people had their wedding.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a good way to do it.
How did you find out about something like that?
I think someone else told me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they invited me to it, and it was helpful because it was like an online resource that other people were going through the same thing. So if people had questions about venues or what to spend on this and stuff like that, you could read, even if you didn't participate, you could read kind of the conversations happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Eventually, I recall when I got married, it's one from wedding planning to home buying planning to baby planning. Like it was like I just bounced from group to group. Great. So, for those in couples or regardless of whether or not your partner or spouse, etc., is here, have you found that I'm hearing a lot of it's complementary in terms of how people are approaching the finances. Is that, I don't want to put that as a blanket statement. Is anyone having a different experience?
A little bit. So I'm in a kind of opposition where we own our condo. We bought our condo 2 years ago, and I've lived with my boyfriend for 3 years, so not married. He's going into the RCMP, but at this point in time, I make more than him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming to, we have a joint account where we each have our own accounts, then we contribute to the middle. And we have a percentage, so the amount that I make, the amount that he makes, instead of contributing completely 50-50, it's 50-50 based on that. But it does become a little awkward at times when maybe there's a big purchase that we want and I have a little bit more liquid income than he does, and it gets very emotional very quickly, and a lot of suddenly it's feelings and confidence and the relationship and the emotion gets tied into it, and that can complicate things.
Sure, absolutely. Has that dynamic changed over time?
A little bit. When we originally bought the condo, I made the full down payment, the full down payment, and I was quasi-serious about having him sign whatever a prenup would be in terms of a house payment.
Yeah.
But as we've gotten more serious, things have kind of relaxed a little bit as he's getting closer to becoming into the RCMP. He's seeing that he's going to make more, but it's still, every so often it comes up if there's an unexpected bill or house repairs, and I'm able to save, and he's still got credit card debt, and that's messy.
I didn't hear anyone actually mention the notion of debt. Is debt something that is on people's minds? I see Jamie nodding.
So I guess I'm the only person not in a relationship. I live by myself. I have independent finances completely. I paid my way through school by working and taking out loans. So I'm like almost 4 years out of university, and then I took a program to learn how to code that was quite substantial debt-wise, and I did that almost a year ago now. So dealing with debt while also having sort of liquid money for the first time and being able to spend buying my first couch. So I'm like a little starter nest, I guess, on my own. So dealing with debt and always having that in the back of my mind of I have loans to pay for and a line of credit that I took my other program for, and kind of balancing between paying off those things, but also, you know, building a life and starting things, investing in whatever, and savings as well, while also paying off debt. Those are the two balances I have in my life.
Absolutely. How does that make you feel? Is it?
Debt is definitely stressful, and it's something that, like, I am completely independent on my finances and always have been since about like 18, I guess. And it's just something I take day by day. It's nothing that I feel overwhelmed by, especially having a stable full-time job, knowing that it's coming always. Don't have to worry about anything stopping there. And then I do actually some freelance on the side, which I have a little bit of liquid money coming in that way. So
Cool.
yeah, never
So-
stressed.
So you mentioned feeling overwhelmed or stressed, not overwhelmed,
Yeah.
but a little bit stressed. Is what like
I think just in sort of when you think of the large scheme of things of debt, and being at this age where potentially soon I want to, you know, buy a place, buy a condo, and sort of dealing with those two things at once of I do have a lot of debt, but I also am trying to save for those future things at the same time, because I know if I start now it'll be easier later. And I think mostly it's just a balance between those two things. And just understanding that both are important, but one kind of has a heavier weight on it, just to get rid of it, as it would be so nice to be debt free. But yeah, that's where I'm at, I guess, in life right now.
Great.
I
Anyone?
have school debt as well. I went back to school last year, the year before, and did my MBA, and so it was like not working for a year and paying for school, so it was like double. So I have that, but I like say a minimum I'm paying this month, and then other than that I try not to think about it ever. So yeah, I mean that's all you can do, and so yeah.
You do that once yearly check-in and you're like, wait, how much went to interest? You've been paying so much every month, and then you're like, oh, my debt actually only went down, my principal went down by like $1,000. No. Just
you have your amount, and that's
Yeah,
what you pay,
yeah.
and you budgeted for
And
that.
that's
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It'll get done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like having a job, knowing like how much I'm gonna get paid is reassuring. And then like when I was in school and I was looking for a job, I was like, oh my, like that was the most stressful time.
Yeah.
And nothing coming in. So yeah. So now I feel like so much better compared to that. Yeah.
Good. Cool. So, you know, I've heard different places where people are focusing, obviously based on kind of the stage and what's prioritized in life. Dave, for you, about to get married, you know, beyond the wedding, what do you say is some of your major financial goals?
Retire early, debt free as soon as possible, so I own my house. So I'm also an accountant, so trying to minimize my tax with simple things like RSP contributions, maximizing contributions to my mortgage payments, all that kind of stuff. But financial goals, retire as soon as possible.
Okay. How do you take steps to get there? Like, what do you think about?
6:49. More so the next, not what's my next career move, the 2 career moves thereafter, to try and figure out how that I can get there, because I know that will lead to success and end goal of making more money.
So like a salary mapping, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
Great.
And when you say early, what's early?
Tomorrow.
Or is it?
Honestly, before 50 if I can. There's a lot to life, and I would like to not work.
Okay. Tim, how about yourself? So I think you mentioned you had a family before.
Yes, I have family, but right now I'm living with my fiance.
Okay.
I guess we just bought a house together.
Congrats.
So right now in the near future we're looking towards the wedding, which is a significant purchase. I would significant amount of money to put aside, and I guess travel plans that we're looking towards. Not so much long-term goals, because we've discussed what we want to do long-term already, but since we've already discussed that, we're looking more towards short-term sort of goals before perhaps a child. So yeah, budgeting towards that, planning towards things that we want to do in the next 5 years is something we've discussed and we work towards. And to do that, we kind of prioritize things, prioritize what we want to do first, I guess, and plan accordingly.
Okay.
Mhm.
Great.
And what's the number one thing you guys want to do before, in the next 5 years?
Well, we've already set aside some money for our wedding, but that's the next major
Yeah.
purchase. But traveling together and while maintaining the current lifestyle that we have is important.
May I ask how you actually get to that goal? Like, what is the actual, how do you guys collect the funds
Right.
to go on the trip? Or
So we do
like that
something
whole-
like David was saying. We do a little bit of salary mapping, how we see our careers kind of moving in the next 5 years or so, and as well. On the flip side, we're looking at our expenses as well. Do we necessarily need some cash flow? Do we need to lower our payments for our mortgage or cut back on some expenses here and there? So there's a little, I guess, again, you're playing with numbers here. You're playing with what's coming in and what's coming out. That's kind of how we manage that.
And these are your spreadsheets? Are they
We
your
do them
own?
together.
You
Yes,
do
we do them together. It's like
There's not a tool you use or
not specifically.
besides
But
Excel?
they're Excel. Excel is really where we manage our expenses and income. But we do it in a smart manner. I'd say it's not just blank cells that have random numbers in them.
Yep.
It's actually done I think in a proper manner.
Sure. Is anybody else using like a type of tool or a
Sure, we
service
should
to
be using a
track?
tool where you guys keep bringing it up. I'm thinking
I
there's
used
something
to
good
use
on there.
Machines.
Yes.
I use it.
Mint.
And I hated it.
Oh, I love
Tell
it.
us about
Yeah,
it.
why? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Because I think it was the notifications, so I probably should have just turned them off. But I'm like, I already paid this bill.
Yeah.
But I just I use an Excel spreadsheet, and I keep it on my desktop, and I kind of update what I put into savings, every where everything goes, so that I know what's budgeted. But I didn't like having to update everything, and it kind of just kept prompting me to do it.
You want to deal with the budget on your own terms, not
Yeah.
what it tells you.
So.
What about you?
I use it. I love it. It just sort of filters through my transactions, and I've categorized it to when I'm spending at the grocery store, coffee shop, a restaurant, or work food, even just the caf at Rogers. So I know if I went a little bit overboard, I'm not making my lunches that week. And I really like just seeing that sort of categorized, and it really helps me plan for, I could have allocated this money somewhere better, and and the notifications I like, because sometimes if I'm dipping too
I
low.
think we've just been really good at breaking my budget, which
Yeah.
is also why I didn't. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you guys were using the budgeting feature on Mint as well?
Yeah, the budgeting, and there's goals there as well. So I like to travel a lot, and I kind of do it a little bit too often, but I work a lot, and I get to take my time off in banked overtime.
Yeah.
So I like to vacation to relax otherwise. And so I like to go on trips, and it's the only way I can budget while maintaining sort of a regular life and also going on trips once every month or 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you use Mint as well.
I did before I went back to school, and then when I went back to school, I was just so bad. So I stopped, and I'm thinking I should probably start using it again. I liked the categories, and I was like, oh my god, I spend so much here.
Mm-hmm.
But the annoying thing was if you went somewhere new and it didn't recognize it, and
Yeah.
having to go in and figure out what that was. So.
Mm-hmm.
How did you hear about Mint?
I probably Googled.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Actually, your brother told me about it.
Oh, did you?
I think I just saw it on the App Store. I first downloaded it as a phone app and then realized their desktop was a lot better. And so I have both of those. Yeah.
I've heard about it through friends, and they've recommended it because of those features exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used it personally, but that word of mouth.
Has anybody else used it? No. And any other tool?
I use my internal bank, so I'm with BMO,
Mm-hmm.
and I use BMO's tool. I think it's pretty good in terms of their budgeting tool. It's a little weak, but in seeing the breakdown, it acts the exact same way Mint does, and then it shows you where you're allocating your money. Because it's all your bank, it automatically transfers it, and I feel a little more secure. I had considered Mint, but the ability to do it was in-house, and for me to open up something like my finances, and I don't know too much about it, but to open up my finances, something so personal and something so detailed, to an external tool was a bit of a risk for me, so I was feeling much more comfortable having it all in one location.
So there was security.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel the same way about I'm also a female, like online banking? Or?
Yes, I exclusively use online banking.
Yeah.
I love the online banking, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I can do it on the go, do it on my phone, e-transfer.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's all in there, right? So you can do your online banking in the app and then go and switch over and see how much you spent and how you're doing for everything.
But security-wise,
Yes. Yeah.
so it's more comfortable.
Yeah.
Got it. Anybody else have concerns about, I don't want to say cybersecurity, it sounds too catchphrasey, but data sharing, that kind of information?
I'm very open with data sharing. I think that it's a really sort of important thing that we have going on right now in society and the web. I know that, yeah, you can so easily get hacked, but at the same time, they're doing so much good by learning all of this. A lot of it is being sold to companies and they're sort of benefiting off of it, but the more they know, the better they can serve me, and I'm fine with that. So.
Yeah. Anyone ever had a bad experience? Like PIN number ripped off, any of that kind of stuff?
I had my credit card was hacked. I think I sound like a super tin hat person now, but I wasn't using one of those slips, like you know how you can protect your credit card with. So I think what happened was I'm a commuter, so when somebody bumped my card, it scanned it.
Really?
So I had people, take I think $1,000 off my credit card, and I had to go through jumps through the bank to get it resolved.
I had a guy tap my back pocket with a card reader at a Raptors game. But I have, my wallet has a card blocker in it, so it's fine.
I've heard about
But people are doing it.
How did you know?
DTC.
I saw him, he was trying to sell me something, and then in one hand I saw his other hand, he's like reaching behind me with this little like ATM looking reader thing.
Oh,
So, yeah, I told the cops, they went, I think they got him.
Wow.
I'm curious about banks. You mentioned banks. Banks just as a general topic. What kind of role are they playing in you guys' lives? How do you feel about banking institutions?
It's all evil.
Stuffing the money under the mattress.
Yeah.
All right.
It is. It's a necessary evil. It's something that you have to do to function in today's society, but they can jerk you around as much as you want, and you don't really have a choice. It's like many people feel about Bell and Rogers. Not Rogers is amazing, but there's they're all doing the same thing. So they might have comparative mortgages, but like our phones and their phones, they're really all the same. So it doesn't matter if you go to TD or Scotia or BMO. It's the same thing, and you just kind of have to deal with it. If you want, put a down payment on a house, if you want to save through like a tax-free savings account, you just deal.
Would you invest through a bank?
I had a tax-free savings account at one point. I don't invest anymore. I use the wealth accumulation through Rogers, and then just save on my own.
Anybody else have any specific tactics they're taking to saving? For some different thoughts already in terms of like I save for something specific, whether it's an indulgence or something I've kind of saved up for. But like, you're talking about stocking money away for retirement. I thought I heard.
Like we haven't bought a house yet. We missed that window that everybody else apparently already did. So, and at this point, we live in a house that has an apartment above us, and we hate our neighbors, so we need to move. But we're not really willing to buy in this market. So most of our saving is targeted towards just building as much of a down payment as we can, so that hopefully eventually the market cools and we can buy something.
Yeah.
So.
What kind of vehicles are you using to save?
I'm in the process of doing the first time home buyers RRSP.
Yep.
And I have a tax-free savings account. I do Rogers shares, so I kind of have stuff everywhere.
And I just accumulate like lump sums basically. Is what I
Okay.
do. Yeah.
Anybody exploring the worlds of robo-advisors or, you know, the Wealthsimple types of the
Yeah.
world?
I'd like to.
Why?
I know some guys at the office that are doing it.
Yeah.
And some of the guys are actually doing work with Wealthsimple. So I haven't really looked into it, but hearing the commercials, hearing guys kind of
That's
talk
the one
about it.
with the guy who's getting all the advice everywhere, the commercial?
I think so. I hear it on the radio.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But
They're
it seems
doing a lot of,
interesting.
social advertising
Yeah.
as well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've used Wealthsimple.
Yeah. Tell us
But it's pretty much you answer a couple questions. They kind of tailor the investments that you put into the money that you give to them into the certain risk profile that you've kind of presented to them. I believe in myself a little more, and I've since not used Wealthsimple and just invested on my own. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of investing and research on my own on my spare time as well. So I trust myself a little more, and I use TFSAs, RRSPs as vehicles for savings. So that's how I target my that's where my investments are sort of held.
And how do you, if you're not using Wealthsimple, how do you buy your investments?
Through a bank.
Through a bank?
Through my my regular bank. Yeah, I'm using CIBC. Yeah.
So do you find it difficult, or is it challenging to do that research on your own? How do you accomplish that type of task?
My background is in accounting and finance,
Mhm.
and so I guess going to school, I've learned a lot about it through my job day to day. Also, you grab some knowledge here and there, and a lot of my friends also kind of invest on their own as well. We do a lot of we talk. We share information, and sometimes we act on that information depending on how confident or depending on the risk profiles of each individual person. So it's a little bit of everything.
Yep.
Do
Do a
you
lot of
use-
person-to-person sharing?
Yeah.
Person to person, or I guess over drinks sometimes. You talk about what's what new industry or product is going on, and maybe you can kind of jump on that wagon, or bandwagon, if you want to call it that. That's important sometimes, and obviously you have to do your own due diligence after that. And
Where do you go then? So you come home with a bit of a tip or an idea from a friend at the bar.
right, I look
Where do you go?
at their financial statements. I look at the news that has come out about it.
Do you
I look
Google that, or what? How do you?
Yeah, a
find
lot of information now is available online, especially through their investor relations websites. If someone wanted to look at Rogers information, a lot of information is involved is through the investor relations website. Same with a lot of public companies, and that plays a big factor into whether or not I invest in a certain company.
How about from folks over here? And are you guys, anyone here finding it challenging or easy to get access to information about money or potential investments?
I hate investing. I do it because I know I should and that I can make money doing it.
Like, what do you hate about it?
The uncertainty. My risk tolerance is very low.
Yep.
So the investments that I have now are exclusively ETFs and very diversified,
Mm-hmm.
and generally things that will yield dividend on a monthly basis.
So how do you pick one, like, S&P ETF or TSX ETF or someone, how do you make those decisions?
I talked so my dad's got a financial background, so I talked to him a bit, but also just looked at what is yielding. Any ETF will say what their dividend yield is. So if I know that I want to maximize my dividend yield, I'll look to those. And then I also know life insurance companies, banks, gold, these things aren't going anywhere, so I generally put my money in those ETFs.
Mm-hmm.
And you buy how?
through my bank.
Through your bank as well.
But I have no loyalty with any institution. If anyone's going to give me a better rate, I'll go with them, for sure.
How do you find out who has the best rate?
Usually commercials, I would say.
TV?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or going to things like Greedy Rates and Rate Hub. I would
Okay.
say.
Good. Morgan, how about yourself?
I don't invest anything more than myself. Partially, it's I feel like that guy in that commercial where I'm just like nope. You go hide in the bathtub. It's my life. I've got enough going on in it that and this is going to sound really ignorant, so please don't hate me, all of you financially savvy people, but I don't have the time or the energy to dedicate to learning enough that I don't muck it up, because I too have a low risk tolerance and I like to know what I'm doing before I throw myself into anything end to end. I just don't have the time for that.
Yeah.
Or the inclination, to be honest.
But you mentioned the employee share.
Yeah, that's a low risk for me.
Mhm.
And I did have a friend, actually Danielle, walk me through it at one point, and it did make sense. So I carve, I think, 5% off every paycheck, and that's enough for me to feel like I'm doing something and money is accumulating somewhere.
Mhm.
I should be doing more. I should learn about it, but I just haven't gotten around to trying, or again, not being terrified or overwhelmed. The whole mortgage, like the buying a house for the first time, for those of you who have bought, was a lot to learn for the first time for me as well. I bought fairly young, so not having people in my social circle who were buying at the same time was hard. So it was a lot of like discovery and
Was there anything that made it easier?
just a lot of research all over the place. We did go and talk to a lot of banks, but I always went and checked what they said at home and compared mortgage rates and asked anybody I could.
Is there any go-to resource for information on buying a home for people like you? I know you were mentioning you were in your own, you did a lot younger than most of your peer group, but for the rest of you as well, is there any sort of places you go to learn this, or is it generally through your bank?
Like I go through friends because most of my friends have just purchased, so they've just gone through the process. So I've sat down and said, walk me through step by step what this is going to take, where the money goes, where you get hit with that fee you're not sure of, et cetera, et cetera.
We had one couple friends who bought a house, and they explicitly said that there is a market for first-time home buyers. There is a business opportunity there for somebody to hold your hand through that whole process. Because it's like you have your banker and your real estate agent and the other real estate agent, all these different people, but there's no one, like they just pass you off to the next, and there's no one to really like guide you through.
They each do their piece without anyone doing the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you feel kind of lost. You're
Yeah,
kind of
that's what they were being shuffled around from person to person. So they really enjoyed the one they had one real estate agent who kind of took over everything. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but they felt good with that. Like this person was helping me through each component of this, as opposed to feeling like they were just next in line going down the assembly line, I guess.
How about you guys, Alex and Mike? Do you guys feel like
he's in real estate, so I trust him with even though it's commercial. Like I trust him with that part. We have a condo and we rent.
Yeah.
And we've got a good rate right now, so we're kind of like till our landlord figures it out. Let's keep doing what we're doing. But from saving wise, like I'm not very knowledgeable, and I'm just imagining how much it would be. Like to learn, I would go to my friends who have recently purchased, and my parents would be probably my go-tos.
Yeah, I lean a lot on my family as well. My father's CA, and so I use his advisor for some investments and stuff like that. So
yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of person-to-person connections, whether small groups, direct friends, family. I guess does that make it feel personalized? Does anyone?
I think you feel better going through someone you know and trust as opposed to a bank or just a head you haven't met yet. Right?
Yeah.
Has anyone come across a resource that they felt they trusted that wasn't, a family member or a close friend? That's not like a baited question.
No.
It's not a trick question. We're just
Nobody said me. No. Okay.
I think when you're dealing with big purchases, you really want to go with a trusted source, and family or close friends are definitely.
You hope they're not going to screw you
Exactly.
purposely.
Yeah,
Are there,
who doesn't have an interest for themselves.
just before we close off on that, in your minds, are there any wealth experts in Canada? People that
The dragons.
I was going to say this one's big. You're looking for Kevin O'Leary, right? Is that the
I thought of
answer?
her immediately to her for some reason, Arlene. I think.
Yeah.
Anybody else besides the dragons?
We're not looking for any answers,
Yeah.
by the way. We're just curious.
People that generate a lot of money in Canada.
No, people that you consider to be experts on the topic of money. People that you would trust on the topic of money. Experts that you would trust.
I'm sure there is. It's not what I'm like looking for.
Yeah, but organizations or individuals?
Doesn't matter.
No.
Like by analog, I could say, man, I would really trust Warren Buffett.
Like an
Yeah, but a Canadian
Right?
version.
Yeah, then
the
Jerry
Wealthy
Schwartz.
Barber guy.
Mm-hmm.
I read that book.
I did too.
Yeah.
And whoever the Canadian equivalent of Alan
Graham
Greenspan would
Watson.
be.
Yeah.
For me in tech, it would just be people that were smart with that. So, like Shopify, startup people that have done really well for themselves. I trust their sort of investment and the path that they went on. But that's specific, I guess, to me in my industry.
Yeah. Do you feel like within the Canadian tech scene, there's like some people who are you can pull out as personal examples?
Well, yeah, the founders of Shopify specifically and
Yeah.
Top Hat's doing really well. I do like a lot of sort of networking events and things like that. And I was part of a very large community in that sort of startup boot camp that I went to learn how to code. Yeah, and I'd just say like talking with people that have done well for themselves, or even building yourself up with your skills is kind of like an investment in your future. And yeah, the people that have done well with their skills as well as their finances, I feel like it goes very hand in hand just out of everyone that I've met.
Does it feel like an accessible community to like have a conversation or get into that type of depth with those?
Yeah, I think like my industry is very open that way, and you can have, especially even just the people on my team in front end development, we're very open about our finances and our career paths and where we're going and skill sharing and all of that. It's so open, and it's a great community to be a part of. And even just people that I know that work at agencies are more than happy to share what kind of salary they're making, just so I'm aware of where I'm going, and if I wanted to switch into the agency side, it's very open and good that way. Yeah.
If I took a more macro lens, right, and said, okay, there's Brexit and there's whatever's happening with prices of oil or gold or whatever, like from a macroeconomic trend, or you could even start to shrink it down. Do you feel like you're missing out on understanding some of the big stuff that might be shaping?
Yes and no. I have a journalistic background, so I follow the news pretty closely. I think what I don't understand is, as a homeowner, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but in part I bought a condo as an investment. Seeing things spike at unnatural rates, and I don't know at what point it's risky to own, at what point it's not risky to own, when I should be selling, when the market might go down. So that's not being able to understand that and how I'm personally affected by it is a problem for me.
Okay. Anybody else feel like they've got a gap they wish they could?
I would say a gap on the financial aspect, like not from the news, like we talk about Brexit, you can see talk about, but obviously there's going to be massive financial repercussions because of Brexit, right?
Sure.
I would like to know what those are so you can get in ahead of it, right? I have absolutely no idea what that would be, but something like that where if you could sit and put the time and energy into it, kind of get ahead of a curve like that and financially gain from something that's going on worldwide economically, maybe would be
Sure.
something to do. No idea how to actually go about that, but that would be a good
I think no one really knows how to go about that. I mean, if you look at the housing market and everything, everyone's been speculating for years that we've peaked, and
Sure.
it hasn't. And to be honest, if you look at New York, like it might keep on going forever.
And that's the uncertainty aspect, right? You don't want to lose your money. You got your hard earned.
Very speculative. I think one of the biggest risks with the commercials for Wealthsimple and when people start talking about money is, especially for everyone in this room, and not to sound preachy, but everyone's got goals of saving up for a house or saving up for a wedding or saving up for traveling or saving up for all these things. you get inundated with, hey, you should be investing your money, or you should be doing this with your money. And the answer is you shouldn't. You have pools of money that you will have goals for. If you invest in anything, you should look at that as a long-term investment of anything greater than 5 years. And if you need that money within 5 years, you shouldn't invest it, because if you can't afford to take it out, why would you do it? So once you get all these people saying you need to be doing this with your money, you're screwed. That's the way that I look at it. So when you talk about macro trends, I wouldn't, but my risk tolerance is very low. So I wouldn't want to look at ways that I could profit off of Brexit or oil or the housing market or anything like that, because it's just, I don't have the appetite for it.
It kind of feels like buying a couch. It's something that you should know how to do it as an adult, and if you don't know, it's like, don't tell me what you're doing. Like it is part of the, I don't know, there's an expectation that if you're savvy and you're smart and you know what you're doing as a grown-up, self-sufficient human being, you're investing. So even earlier when I was like, I don't really do that, it was like,
Yeah.
And do you think there are people in your life that do know those things?
my family's all teachers, so probably no. Yeah, I
I mean, I was wondering what you thought of them. I was sort of thinking, like, if there are those people in the room that seem to know.
who I could like consult. Most of the people here I could probably ask and be like, teach me your ways, but again, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
On that theme of, going, actually I went super macro. If I took it down to more micro, I've heard a lot about the interpersonal relationships, right? Friends, family, sharing ideas, helping potentially finance certain things, etc. Is anyone here, Tim or Jamie, are you guys ever curious about how you, I don't want to say, rank, but what your financial situation versus your peers or your friends is like?
Like, to speak to that, I think for me, I'm one of the only ones out of my peer group that has loans, and that's, I guess, like my tighter peer group, but because they just had, university all paid for and further school paid for, but I know that, like, I'm being smarter with my money and savings in the long run, and they just might not have the immediate debt that I have now. I think that, like, my peer group ranges from many different ages and many different, walks of life, backgrounds, differences, just even going through that program where people were starting a new life in coding, and everyone's been pretty successful in it now. But yeah, I think everyone has personal finances, and everyone has a background and a story and differences in their career paths where, if they want to take a pay cut because they want to do something that makes them happier, it's totally different, totally personal, and I don't feel like a competitive nature in that to compete, and I don't think that anyone really, some people do, but not in my life and where I'm at.
Yeah. Tim, what do you think? Are you curious about how other folks who are just starting off ready to get married are doing?
I think I'm not. I wouldn't say personally. I'm not extremely curious about how my peer group is doing. I'm more focused about myself and my fiance and how we're managing our money for our goals. What other people are doing doesn't really affect how I'll be doing. Sure, I'll listen in. I'm always down to listen, and if you're willing to share, I'll listen in. But it doesn't really affect how I'll be progressing in life, or even in my career, I guess you could say. So much as the stuff that I'll be doing myself.
Okay.
I think it's a dangerous game to compare yourself, because everyone's taking a different route to get there, right? So, and if you start to compare yourself, maybe all of a sudden your decisions that you make are going to alter because you're trying to attain something that maybe you shouldn't be attaining at that time because someone else has it or something like that. So I think it's a dangerous game to do that. Focus more on yourself than what other people are doing.
As you're sharing information, is there a line you don't want to cross where it's like, I'll give generalities, but I don't want to get into a certain level of specifics?
I think talking about finances in general is somewhat of a taboo. Like, you don't want to, like, you're not going to ask a person on the street how much you make, or how much they make.
Is it important to know?
It really, that's I guess my point is, it's not really that important if you're more worried about yourself and your family, your significant other. So I don't think, I don't pay too much attention to that.
I kind of have a different opinion of that.
So do
I like to know what my friends are making.
Yeah.
I'm happy to share with them what I'm making, and especially in my office, like I mentioned earlier, we're a commission-based
Sure.
industry. We have a list of who's made what year to date. Any time of day you can go look at it.
Yeah.
And that provides a great amount of just drive. It's like, shit, I want to be top producer this month. I want to be top producer this year. You know, I want to. For me, that's great incentive.
Yeah,
and not to say
absolutely.
that I wouldn't work hard without it, but knowing like, okay, I know
Sure,
my buddy
you
works
got
at this
a horse
startup
in
and
the
he's
race,
making this
yeah.
kind of money. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna beat him this year. And it's not because I want. I don't know. I
It's
just
motivating.
it motivates me, right? It's you know, I want to make more money and I want to save more money and kind of helps motivate me, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Alex, you said you also have.
Well, I'm curious what my friends are making because, like, friends that I went to school with, I'm like, I'm smarter than you or whatever it is. So I'm like, what are you doing? And I think there should be more transparency in what salaries are and like at Rogers or
Especially, yeah,
Yes.
like I have no idea if a guy came into my role if he'd make more money than me.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there's our grades, but the range of salary is huge,
Yeah.
and I would like more transparency, and I'm very open with sharing, because I think that's the only way we're gonna know if things are fair. But then as for savings and people what they have or what not owning a house or whatever, everyone has different priorities. So I'm like, you can work towards that, or I'm working towards this. But I think from a salary perspective, I'm definitely curious what my peers are making in other industries or other types of roles. Because I mean, I'm still like moving around, that's
Yeah.
kind of more common to change careers and change paths. And so I'm just curious, like what else is out there. So.
Other than asking somebody, like, hey, what do you
There's
make? Are there resources?
Glassdoor.
She's gonna ask me.
So when I was when I was interviewing and stuff like that, so I'd totally go on Glassdoor, and there's a few others. You just have to put in information to get more information. So I mean, I was like, I thought it was great because I gave candid information. It's all anonymous, but it will say the company, it will say the job title and what their salary was. So. And it's good for interview
I've heard other people
questions.
say, yeah, glass.
I've never heard of it.
Does it
It's
feel
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like it feels trustworthy?
Yeah.
Why
yeah.
lie, I guess, on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Headhunting.
don't see why that you would lie because it's anonymous.
But you
and
could easily lie.
You could.
You
Yeah,
could
absolutely.
easily
As an
lie, but
employee,
like
you could go
It's
lie.
crowdsourced.
yeah. And I imagine like you kind of validate comments and so there's a ton of responses, so you kind of see the average. So yeah, if someone did lie,
There is an innate sense to trust crowdsourcing a little bit more than you would.
yeah,
Official
and
information.
I'm an honest person, so I'm like, well, I assume other people would be. I don't
Yeah.
see why I would go on and say, yeah, I was getting paid like.
And it's the most
Yeah, you-
fruitful thing you can find, right? Like, as somebody who's young and in an industry that's mostly men, where do you go to ask people? If you can't ask people because it's rude,
Mhm.
or you're in an industry that you don't know a lot of other people and you don't have a mentor
Mhm.
who could gauge for you, where do you get that information? If you're going to an interview and the director says, oh, well, we can pay you this much and this much, when do you fight back? When do you say,
Yeah.
actually, I'm worth this much?
Yeah, it's hard to have the backup
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Just
when you
Glassdoor
want a
go.
job, you're like,
Yeah, please just hire me if I push back, but where's the sweet spot where I'll get more money, but you won't decide on
Yeah.
somebody else?
Sorry, Tim.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of headhunting companies and recruiting companies that also kind of do that work for you. Obviously, they have an incentive to tell you a certain number or a certain compensation package that you should be expecting. But you know, a lot of the times when they tell you that number per se, they'll probably set you up with a job that actually is reflective of that number. So there is some truth to what they say as well. So I would say not just Glassdoor, yeah, that's a great resource, but also these recruiting companies and headhunting companies, they do a lot of work on those numbers as well.
And that's for salary.
Yes.
comparing, right?
Comparing.
Yeah.
Comparing,
Comparing.
And just the market in general, I would say.
But less around comparing. If there was a tool to compare how your finances, maybe on average, like say, a man at a certain age in a certain city, being able to have a crowdsource ability to see how you compare. I don't know. Not hearing.
BMO does that.
I'm not hearing it.
The
You're
BMO
hearing
tool
that?
has
No, I think it would be a great tool if you'd come up with something like that. I think
Yeah.
it would be get a lot
It
of
would be,
use. But
yeah.
I don't.
It'd
Yeah.
be dangerous because you'd really have to, I don't know, give some context to it, right? So a guy who's
Complicated.
25 years old lives in this city,
Yeah.
but in what
But
industry and
his
Oh,
priority
yeah.
in life is living and
Yeah,
not
it's never
having
going to be a perfect
anything in the
model with all the
bank.
variables.
Yeah, I don't know.
Be
Yeah, I heard
interesting.
earlier there's so many different paths to go on.
Yeah.
You were saying that, yeah.
The
Instinct.
BMO, sorry, go ahead. No.
I was just gonna say, and stages of life. We could all be, every single person in this room could make more money not at Rogers. Rogers pays decently, but not compared to if you went somewhere else. And I know there's some non-Rogers people here. But depending on your stage of life, if you need a 9 to 5 for whatever reason, that could be what you need for X number of years
Sure.
or months, and then you go and seek that next job that will pay you more money.
Mhm.
So just to put it in context, that tool may or may not be relevant to your stage of life and
Okay.
what your
Yeah.
priorities are.
Makes sense, yeah. You were saying about BMO.
Yeah, so part of BMO's tool actually has an area where it says you're above 82% of people in your rough age group, in your rough demographic. But all I've ever gotten from it is okay, I'm doing okay. Like it's more of a sanity check than a actually
Something to
using
dive
it.
into. Or,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like when LinkedIn tells you what your profile is.
Yeah.
It's also assuming you do all your investing in bank through BMO,
Mhm.
right?
Oh,
If you
absolutely.
work through different institutions, it can only
They don't know.
yeah.
Yeah. Does a tool like we talked about Mint before, which is an aggregator, does that give you any sort of
Never used it.
I
pulse
don't
check? No.
remember.
It gives you like at certain points, even on your like grocery little category, it'll say if you got a credit card with like cash back on groceries, you could be saving this amount, which is an advertisement because they do try to sell you credit cards, but they try to sell you the best one to match to your profile, I
Yeah.
guess. But yeah, you're kind of aware that it's an advertisement because it seems like one. But yeah, they try to give you like little tips here and there of how you could save more money, or if you did this, you would have this much goal-wise for your travels.
I think another way to, like, instead of comparing, it'd just be interesting to say, on average, people 5 years out of university make this much, they save this much, they own, this percentage owns a house or owns a car, just like those kind of stats.
Like
I get
data.
FAQ
Yeah.
type thing, and it's like, oh, okay, well, it's, I don't know. But I guess we do that ourselves, like we kind of like see where our friends are at and where we're at.
Yeah, it's a shallow pool to
But
compare
like
to.
my
but-
sister is like, so I'm a triplet, so I have a sister and brother same age, and we are literally like in different places in life. Like they both have kids and have a house. I'm like, so it's like just depends what you want. I don't know.
Makes sense. I think we've got about 5 minutes left. Was there any question that you wanted to dive into, Robin?
I guess one of the things, the last sort of things that thing that I was thinking about was, trust has come up a little bit. The bank, you trust, sort of, and trust and value. I think how do you, as a individual, sort of trying to chart your financial life, what comes to mind? What would you be willing to pay for? What's valuable? It's a tough question, but what's value? How do you perceive value? What would you pay for? What's valuable in a tool or in a product? What are the most important things that give you a sense of value from financial products or services or tools or?
I would say security and consolidated knowledge. Like I would pay money to not have to go to a bunch of different sources that I don't know whether or not I can trust to learn about investments. Like there's one place I can go to, then I might pay, again, not a ton, but something.
Is that a convenience thing?
Yeah, it's
And
a time thing.
a time thing.
And again, a bit of a trust thing. You need to know wherever the information's coming from, that it's from a vetted source.
And is there anybody winning, any brands, new brands that come to mind? I mean, there's the banks that are established, but is there any emerging brands that you think are doing a good job of building trust in?
Not offhand, let me think about it. No.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that, like, as a general for my peer group, well, Simple is something that a couple of my friends have picked up and started to dive into. I think that they did a really good job at creating this sort of like trustworthy bubble, whether it's true or not, and if they are exploiting us because we don't have any knowledge about investments, and they're just like, let us handle it. But I think that their marketing team did a really good job in sort of pushing that out there, and it seems like it's working, because a couple of my friends that would have never invested before are now investing with Wealthsimple. Yeah.
So is the value topic, how does Wealthsimple and value, what's
I think that they're just transparent about their value, like, sort of how much they'll charge you to do it. It's very with banks, it's always kind of hush of like, oh, it's a percentage, and if you don't, if math isn't your strong suit, that doesn't connect right away. And you're just like, that seems low, I guess. So having sort of transparency there of just like, here's the breakdown of exactly what it'll cost you, and here's a graph to show you exactly, how much you'll be spending compared to how much you'll be earning. I think that transparency is the best way, and just showing it in sort of consumer friendly visuals. Yeah.
Well, simple.
good brand?
So out of curiosity, how do you know you can trust Wealthsimple? How do you know in a year they're not just going to collect money from everyone and then all of a sudden you never hear from them again? And
There's also a lot of uncertainty with Wealthsimple too. Like,
Yeah.
Depending on your risk profile, you see all the fees and the stuff that up front, but what actually happens in that year's time or whatever that time horizon is for yourself? What if those investments that they've made for you actually don't do as well as they've projected?
I think they're targeting people who aren't that knowledgeable and who aren't gonna spend the time to even look at it.
It's just
I would imagine if I did it, I'd be like, oh, done, one and done, and then like they do it, right?
Sure.
So I think that's their
targeted.
bet.
Is there something that would make a Wealthsimple or whatever? I mean, they're an easy example, but what would make you trust them?
Well, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to, but I mean, like Morgan keeps saying, she's looking for trust, right? She's hesitant, so I don't know what you can do. But it sounds like, just from the group here, that if they could come up with a trusted site, they would get a lot of traction. I don't know what that would entail, but
I think track record is important.
Yeah.
So if you've got a good track record, it's more likely that other people and people that wouldn't trust you before will come to you.
Well, that's the tough part if you're looking for a new product.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
You have to
it's
establish
right.
a new
It's-
product.
yeah.
Hence why everyone keeps going to the banks, right?
So maybe in 10 years, Wealthsimple will all be like, wow,
Yeah.
let's go with that.
Yeah.
Or,
But going back to your question about like celebrity finance people, for lack of a better word, I think if I were going to this Wealthsimple, I'd start to do some digging in like who started it, like who are these people, how have they made their money, like what's their background in the financial industry, to see if like they've got some street cred in their hoods.
Yeah. What's funny with Wealthsimple again, but I've seen a couple of things recently where they take people that had poor finances to begin with to tell the story of like Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain, John Hamm too.
Exactly. So like people that didn't necessarily start off right, but they're like, if I were to do it, I would have done it this way, and I'm doing it now, and now I'm benefiting from it. So they're kind of, again, tailoring to those people that
Sounds
don't
like effective advertising. You just gotta go do some research to, you know what I mean? You can say anything on a commercial, right? You
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
Make sure you can back it up, like Tim said. Show me what we can actually do.
But what are those
Testimonials are
stories?
usually trustworthy. Like they're effective in being that, giving that perception. So.
Yeah, I think of like even the movie Big Short with finances too. They took a lot of celebrities to explain in simple terms what was going on, because having that kind of movie where it was about Wall Street and that entire breakdown that no one really understood, or the general public didn't really understand what happened and how it happened. They took people like
Margot Robbie in the bathtub.
there you go, exactly. And you remember that. To explain it and break it down into simple terms, and I think it was really effective and explained the situation to a lot of people. And that's one where people trusted the banks. Maybe they shouldn't have back then.
Yeah, seems to be effective. I'm just not going to trust John Hamm with my money, right? I'll take a Scotch recommendation maybe, but no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you so much
Fantastic.
for your
Yeah,
time.
Thank you very much.
The recording is going to stop now,
Mhm.
right? So now you can say what you really think. But really appreciate it. And
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been great to ask you these questions and learn a lot. And
yeah.
do you guys have any questions for us?
I want to know, like, what's the outcome? You know, what happens out of this?
Well, I think Greg mentioned that we're working, with Rogers. I work at Rogers actually. Greg actually works at Mars. But really, what we're looking to do is really just understand people better, so that you can actually come up with some products or services or business ideas, solutions that actually have some real value for people. So it really just starts with asking people about themselves and digging deep. So that's what we meant when no right or wrong.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's no agenda.
I know the intent of this. It would be interesting to say.
See where it
hey,
goes.
like,
Yeah.
based on some of the feedback.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, we'll, we can, Ellen sort of has been coordinating this with OLEX, and actually we may be at a certain point reaching out to let you know where we're at on our journey, and maybe have you come back in and check in with us later. So, yeah, that could happen down there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Grab some snacks on the way out. We took you over lunch, so feel free to grab anything there.
She's got hard copies.
Oh yeah, don't forget to take off your name. That person who walks down the street later.
I can grab them.
Yeah.
I'll be there. Where are they? I can grab them from John to start.
Bye.
Sarah's got them.
Nice to meet you guys.
Do you want me to just grab them when I'm going out there?
Okay.
Like, are we planning to meet before? It's just giving her tickets sometimes, somebody's right
She
in
said
front
she
of
could leave
it.
them in the mailbox. Wrapped up in their house.
They're not too far off, right?
No.
Or you go completely on a different end, right?
Exactly.
Or
I would say we're more in the headspace, really not coming up with anything in mind, certainly not the mother brands, Rogers Bio, but even the mother brands. We're not looking to build brand extensions for sports now, we're looking to probably, yeah.
Because I think if we have too much of here's what we have, let's build on it.
Well, I need to do that too.
No, of course, but people already are,
Yeah.
right? So
It's their job to
yeah,
do that.
exactly. So there's existing development, but it's cool to be a part of.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
No, it was fun, right? I enjoyed it. Sorry,
See you
for
around.
chatty.
No, you're not at all.
There's
The
like
chattier the better, we love chatters.
I felt like everybody really knew their finances except for me. I was like, oh, you're all
Like to have just an alternate opinion in the room.
The other thing that I was thinking is we're all very lucky in that we all have steady jobs. I don't think anybody in the room is contract. I don't think anybody in the room. I know most of my friends are still part-time or taking a job.
We've seen that in our interviews, the gig economy for sure, and shift working.
So just.
That was not this room, you're right, but you have seen that, yeah.
That's a huge part of it. I know even with sports, I've seen that when they try to target millennials and the price is 24.95 months. Forget about it. Yeah. It's $9.95. I get
Exactly.
cool shows for that.
Thanks, Morgan. See you later. Oh, no. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're good. Hey, Jason.
Thank you.
Bye, Morgan. Take care. Well done, sir.
Good.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
Well, how did you guys find it?
It was good. It was
I was nervous. I don't know why. It was just, I think it was the sort of 8 on 2. I felt like we were a team, but sort of it was just a group to manage. And whereas the interviews I haven't felt nervous at all, so they went on that. But how did it come across?
yeah, I think it went well.
You were there as the
Everyone was. It was kind of just like yesterday. Everyone was just like free for all of.
writing down
Yeah.
what they were doing. We have a board set up. I don't know, do you have time?
Yeah, it was
Do you want to come back and see how we're working? I mean, I know you're you got a busy day, but if you want to come up, you can see how we were capturing. We had jobs, pains, and gains board to capture it a little bit more, in an organized fashion, and then sort of a grid
Okay.
where we could track products they mentioned.